Hi there, it's Alison from Freddie Loves Crochet, and I'm bringing you a tutorial today for this is a stitch that I use on my Freddie scarf, but it's the corner to corner lemon peel or griddle stitch, depending on which you prefer to use. And so the lemon peel griddle stitch is quite a popular one. Corner to corner, it's a little bit less well known. So you get you can see with this type of yarn, because of the variegation in colour, you can see how it works on the diagonal that way. When you use a plain colour, it's not quite so clear that that's what you do. But you can use a plain colour or a variegated for this. If you want it to look particularly stripy, get a nice variegated yarn with kind of quite a distance between the colour changes, and you'll get this lovely effect. If you use a plain colour, one of the advantages is that you don't have to start, especially if you're doing something bigger than a scarf, like a blanket, you don't have to start with a massive chain if you're starting in the corner, because we just start with a small amount of chains and grow it up at right angles, and then at some point we start to bring it in with decreases. So get some yarn and your hook and follow along, and I'll show you just how to do this beautiful stitch that has become a firm favourite of mine. We're going to start with a slip knot on our hook. I'm using plain yarn for this one just to make it a little bit easier for you to follow along, but I do love the colour change yarn. Really looks really good with this stitch. We're going to start with a chain of 4. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. And we're going to skip 3 chains. That classes as a chain 3 space. And then we're going to go to the very first chain that you made of the 4. So it's the one by the knot. And in there, we're going to place a single crochet in US terms, which is a double in the UK, which means there's no yarn over before we put the hook in. I'll use primarily US terms, but I will also reference UK terms. So we're going to start with a single crochet in the first stitch or the first chain. And then in the same chain, we're going to put a double, which is a UK treble, yarning over and in, and then yarn over through 2, yarn over through 2, and that is row 1. So in effect, this is our bottom corner, and we're going to grow it up that way now. We're going to then chain 3, 1, 2 and 3. This is our increase rows. We're growing it bigger, so we need to be increasing at both ends of our rows. When we come to the decreasing, that's when things change a little bit. So we're going to go to the very first stitch. So these are our 3 chains. We're going to skip over the chains, go to our first stitch, and we're going to put a single in there, a double in the next. Again, I'm using US terms here, folks. And then I'm left here with a chain 3 space. It might be that you want to put a stitch marker in your chain 3 spaces. So whenever you make a chain 3 at the beginning of a row, place a stitch marker around the chain, and then you'll know where your space is. I don't feel like I need it because I've done this stitch so much, but it can be helpful when you get going. In my chain 3 space, I'm going to place a single and a double in the same place. So here's my single, which is a UK double, and then a double in the same place, which is the UK treble. Okay, so you'll see that we are growing each time. I've put that down again. You can see how it's growing at a right angle. And then, because I'm increasing, I'm going to chain 3 again. 1, 2 and 3. Turn. Always when you turn, you want this tail end to be at the bottom here, as if you had a heart shape here, this would be at the bottom of the base of the heart sort of thing. That's how I think about it. So then we're going to skip over our 3 chain. We're going to go and put a single in the first stitch, a double in the next, then a single, and we're going to work as this grows bigger. This is what you'll do all the way across: a single, then a double, then a single, then a double, and then we come to the chain 3 space again, which is there. Again, use stitch markers if you need them. In that chain 3 space, we put a single and a double. in the same spot. 1. So we're basically, your increase rows carry on like this. I'm going to do one more with you, and then you're going to grow the, if you're doing a scarf, you only want it sort of a few inches. If you're doing a blanket, you're going to keep growing this out to be really big. You can decide whether you want it to be square or rectangular. I'm going to show you how to do a rectangular shaped corner to corner piece because of doing a scarf, which is going to obviously be long and thin. So I'm going to do one more row with you. 1, 2, and 3. Single and double. Single and double. Single and double. So you do that all the way across, just 1 in each stitch until you get to the chain 3. And in the chain 3 space, we're going to put a single and a double. So like I say, continue in this fashion until you have it as big as you want. If you are doing the Freddie scarf, you're going to do this until you have 19 rows in total. The rows with this stitch can be really tricky to count. So I would advise marking off each row that when you've done it. Because it's really hard to figure out how many rows you've done otherwise. So when you've got to about 19, if you're doing the Freddie scarf, that's when we're going to start to make some shape. Otherwise, you can continue to grow this out if you're doing a different project until it's the size that you want before we introduce some decreases. So I've made mine a little bit bigger, but not really scarf size, just for the purposes of this tutorial. So I am now coming up to a decrease. So I've started the row that I'm going to decrease on the normal way. So I started with my chain 3, did my single, double all the way across. And I've stopped where I have 2 stitches left. So there's 1 and 2 there. And then I've also got my chain 3 space here. And this is where we're going to make our first decrease. So what's going to happen is that I'm going to continue to grow this and increase up this side. And so I need to carry on increasing. And on this side, I'm going to start to decrease every row on this side so that it grows up like that. If I didn't, it would continue to grow out that way. So I'm going to increase here and decrease on this side. So I've got my 2 stitches on my chain space left. I'm up to a single. So I'm going to put a single in the first of the 2 stitches that are left. And then I've got this stitch and this chain 3 space. And I'm going to do a double crochet decrease over these 2 spaces. So I'm going to yarn over into the stitch, yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 and then leave these 2 here. Yarn over again into the chain 3 space now. Yarn over, pull through. Yarn over, pull through the front 2. That should leave you with 3 loops. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So that's our first decrease made at the end of this row. Because we're decreasing every row and it always has to be on this side, we have to start the next row with a decrease as well. So we're going to chain 2 on a decrease now. So 3 on an increase, 2 on a decrease. Then we're going to turn, making sure all the time that this is at the bottom. And now we're going to skip over 2 stitches. So these are our 2 chains that we skip anyway. Stitch to skip, stitch to skip. So these 2 we don't work in. We're aiming for this one here, and we're going to start with our single and doubles across. So skipping the first 2, single and then double, single and then double, single and then double. Remember that I am using US terms here. Single, I need more yarn, and then double. And we're going all the way to the end because we're heading towards an increase side. So we're not stopping like we do on the decrease. A single and then a double. And then I'm at my chain space once I've done this double. And then in my chain 3 space, I'm doing my increase. So I'm doing a single and a double in my chain 3 space. Okay. So that's the first part of our sort of decrease row done. Because I'm on an increase here, I need to do another increase when I turn and go back down to my decrease here. So chaining 3 for an increase, 1, 2, 3, turn, skip over my 3 chains, and then it's single double all the way down to the last 2 stitches. So leaving the last 2 stitches and the chain 3 space where we will do our decrease again. And I'm going to go through that with you again. And then it's basically a repeat of these 2 rows until you've got it as big as you would like it to be. So single double all the way down. Please do slow the video down if I'm going too quickly for you. I have put it into chapters as well, so make sure that you use those chapters if you need them. Okay, so I'm now at my last 2 stitches here. 1, 2, and a chain 2 space here. So I'm going to do my single crochet in here. And then I'm going to do my decrease again across the last stitch that's remaining plus the chain space here. So it's a chain 2 space from now on. The first one was a chain 3 space because it had been an increase. So yarning over and into that last stitch, proper stitch, and then pull through 2, leave them there, yarn over into the chain 2 space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through all 3. And then, like we did before, we're going to chain 2. So we're always chaining 2 now at this end. Turn, keeping this at the bottom. And you'll see now how it's starting to come up into a rectangular shape. Obviously, it's always going to be a diagonal. So the next step, I'll show you how to square it off. So just to finish off how to do the decrease again, we're now going to skip that stitch and skip that stitch. So you skip the first 2 stitches, then we're going for this one. And then we continue as we have been doing with our singles and doubles all the way up. Okay. And then we're going all the way to that chain space to do our increase where we do a single and then a double in there. And then you'll chain 3 because this is the increase side. So turn that. So the increase side here, chain 3 as normal back down, and then finish before the last 2 stitches. And then you're going to do your decrease over the last stitch and the chain space at the end there. So if you follow the last 2 rows basically that we've done, that will continue to grow in a rectangular shape. And then once you've got it as long as you want it, so for the Freddie scarf I have said around 124 rows in total. However, there's no hard and fast rule to that. If you're just trying to use one ball of yarn, you may need, depending on your tension, you may need to stop a bit earlier or add a couple of extra rows on. But basically you want to stop just before you get to the end of the ball so that you have enough left, because I'm going to show you then how to square this off. So the squaring off is basically where we're going to decrease now on both sides. So we're going to continue to decrease here like we have been, but instead of increasing on this side, we're now going to decrease so that we can pull these 2 sides together and square it off. So we're going to start then, because we're on a decrease now rather than increase, we're going to start with a chain of 2. And we're going to skip the first 2 stitches, and then we're going to continue in pattern, so a single then a double, all the way until we get to the last 2 stitches. Okay, and here we are. So got the last 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and the chain space. So I'm going to do my single in the next stitch, and then I'm going to do my double decrease here. So hook in, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and then into the chain 2 space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarning over and pulling through all 3, and chain 2, turn, and we'll do exactly the same again. And this time, instead of increasing here, we're going to stop 2 stitches before the end so that we can carry on decreasing and bringing this together to finish it off. So skipping over the first 2, continuing pattern, single and then double. Okay, I'm now at my last 2, so I do my single in that first of the last 2, and now it's where I do my double decrease. And so basically that's what you're going to do now for every row until you have a couple of rows to go, and I'm going to show you then how to finish. So when you're almost at the end, stop there, come back to the chapter, find the chapter, and I'll show you how to finish off the last part of this. So when you've got 4 stitches left, we're almost at the end. We're going to do, we're going to skip over the first 2. I've done my chain 2. We're going to skip over the first 2, and then we're going to do a single in here as we would normally, and then our double decrease across the last stitch and the chain 2 space. Okay, and then just because this dips slightly, and to finish this off nicely, we're going to chain 2, turn, and then there's a chain 2 space at this side, this end that we started the previous row with, and in here we're just going to do a single crochet in that chain 2 space there, and that will finish off really nicely our rectangular piece. Then all you need to do is trim and finish off like that. So make this as long as you want and start decreasing as quickly or as far along as you want to do that as well. If you wanted a square piece, you would continue increasing at the same time each end of the row, and when you wanted to decrease, you start what we've done here to finish it off. We would start to decrease both ends of the row at the same time as well, which will give you a square. If it's particularly useful for something like a blanket. Gives a lovely dense texture, this stitch. It's really nice for scarves and garments and blankets because unlike a lot of crochet, it's not particularly holy and gappy, so it's lovely and warm. I really hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial. Please give me a thumbs up, a subscribe and a comment in the comment section below, and come back again soon for more crochet tutorials. Take care now.